No citizen comments.
Okay. So let's do the approval of the minutes of May 2nd. Do you have any comments to those? Nick?
Move
Get
that
a
we
motion to
approve the minutes of May 2nd, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. So now on to old business, the priorities plan review and update.
Okay, so we have not looked at our priorities plan since last August. And so at the last meeting, Leah asked if we could bring that forward again, it's always good for us to keep on top of it. So in your packets, you were given a copy of the full priorities plan. If you remember, you guys had your kind of general priorities plan, and then in the green are the sections that came out of the preservation plan that you were part of, that city council approved last year. So that's why there's the differences in color. So there's a couple different ways that we can do this. We can kind of read through them and make sure that the items listed are still items that you guys would like to work on. And then we can discuss if there is a project that you would like to start developing, so that we can maybe consider, grant opportunities that might be available to do the completion of something. As you guys remember, so last year we completed the plaques project. That did require a grant with city match funding. And so, but usually when you're going to apply for grants, and I gave you a couple different examples of grants for historic preservation items that are available. I would encourage you to read through those to see what those different kinds of grants will cover. Projects usually have to be pretty well fleshed out for us to go after grant funding. So we're definitely not there currently, so we're probably not gonna hit this year's grant cycle. But just as kind of a general reminder of what those grants are looking for, the kinds of projects that they are willing to fund. And then each of these three that I provided you guys in the packet, talk about what kind of match is required, because most of them require some sort of match, whether that be an in-kind match of time. Sometimes we're looking for a match of actual dollar to dollar. It just kind of depends on the granting body and how the individual grant works. So let's do a little review of our priorities plan to start. So on the priorities plan, so our number one priority was education. And that involved different areas of education. So number one, you guys had talked about putting together better information for incoming city council members. When new city council members do come into the city, they go around to all the different departments and are given kind of a briefing of what each department does. There is a really brief briefing of what this commission does as part of their community development review. So they do get some information. It's not super in-depth just because of the amount of time that we have with them as they come in. So if that is something that the commission wanted to expand on or try to come up with like a flyer or a booklet or a whatever, that would be a project that you could work on. That's definitely something that could be more than just for counselors. But that's one thing that you guys had talked about. Two was encourage people to attend and bring up questions during our HPC meetings. As you all know, all of our meetings are posted on the city website. They're part of the calendar. Agendas are posted here at community development, at the library, and at City Hall. It's rare that we have people attend unless they're here for a certificate of appropriateness. So I'm not really sure how you would encourage more of that. We had also talked about having kind of like a comment box on the website. That's potentially doable, but kind of hard to track. But it's potentially doable. But that would be something where I guess the commission would need to decide if like you're just directing staff to answer questions as they come in. I mean, I answer phone calls as they come in. Or if that would be something where you guys want to review questions at a monthly meeting, and so then you're kind of delaying response, and I don't. You guys would have to think about that. 3 was ask city council to declare May as Historic Preservation Month, which they did last year, and we did the proclamation. 4 was looked for ways to
We missed that this year, right?
kind of like I mean, you could probably ask them to do it every single year. I just don't know what the point of doing it every single year is.
Can it be done like from now on, it's this, or does it have to be done every year?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I would have to ask. I think once the proclamation is made, it's like, it's been made, it's in it.
Yeah,
But I will confirm with the city clerk, because I don't know for 100%.
and then maybe if it is like, you know, activity or whatever, then we could just emphasize it every month.
Right, yeah. We'll ask that question.
So it might be a done deal.
Okay, I will check on that. I don't know the answer. Okay, and then 4 was look for ways to enlarge the audience for historical preservation ideas that affect the community in a positive manner. So the ideas you had come up with previously on that was to come up with an annual communication with owners of properties, in the Norma Hill overlay and the West End Historic District by either doing a mailing or a door hanger. Not really sure how we would do a door hanger. I don't have enough time to walk around that many doors. But if you guys wanted to do that, we can figure that out. Which summarizes Lewiston's historic preservation program, limitations on what changes can be made to buildings without the formal review and approval. Promote available resources such as the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior's standards for treatment of historic properties, and their guidelines, and the Preservation Briefs Technical Leaflet Series. So I have added, so we do have the link that goes to our design guidelines from the HPC page. We also have the link that goes to the Secretary of Interior standards from our page. And I believe I have the SHPO link on there also for like the tax stuff. The preservation briefs are slightly more difficult to link to, just because it's a really big database of stuff. But it can be linked. It would just go to all of them rather than specific ones. I mean, I guess we wanted to come up with a list of specific topics you thought were most helpful. I could try to link to specific leaflet. Again, that would be a discussion.
So out of number 4, we probably want to get rid of or door hanger just because it's clumsy and not likely to ever happen. That would be
That is up to you guys.
recommendation. The only time we would use door hanger things is if we were looking at a piece of property and we would leave a message to the owner that way. Maybe that would be
Very specific and targeted.
very, very targeted door hanger things.
I mean, mailings are pretty easy, because I've done them multiple times in, trying to recruit for this board. Our GIS system has a way that I can like map around the area. And then it populates me like a Excel spreadsheet that has, all the owners' names and addresses. So mailings are not super hard. So those are doable if, the commission wanted to come up with something to send out. I've done a lot of postcards in the past. Okay, so then,
Very efficient way too, getting the message out.
yeah, it seems to have worked. I mean, I've definitely recruited a number of commissioners that way, so it seems to hit the right people. Okay, so then 5, and so this is something that you guys could definitely work on that would not require a grant or anything else. This would just be time and discussion on your guys' part is to develop a list of frequently asked questions and post them on the HPC webpage, with the answers. So that would be like
Any
expanding.
idea about usage of that page? I mean, most people don't get up in the morning and say, I'm gonna go look at the historical preservation page. I mean, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't know if I don't feel like they have a tracking mechanism. I don't think IT.
I think those people overall don't really look at the city webpage very often.
Yeah,
Cities, but looking up city information maybe, but I don't think people go to
If
it.
they have
for
a
that.
specific question, they think
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah.
not just to go, oh, what's going on in
It-
this
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
There is, so you can subscribe, so anytime, like agendas are posted or any of that kind of stuff, if you've subscribed, it sends out like a email or a text or whatever, telling you that something new has been posted. So I think that has the potential to drive traffic, but I would imagine most people get their city news, from like the Facebook page.
So as the person who's answering the phone and answering the questions, do you have a theme of what keeps being asked?
Really, I think signage is probably the biggest one I get questions about. Just because signs in historic districts are slightly different and a lot of times people will look at just what it says under the zoning code that they're in for
Mhm.
signage rather than the historic district stuff.
What about the Facebook page? What is that? Cause I think that's really, I think a lot of people use the Facebook page. So could we, is that just something we could have one thing a month on there, on the Facebook page? I mean, is it something we can just submit? An interesting fact or something, just to make people aware of it more? Or how does the Facebook page work? Like,
Our public information officer posts to it.
But it would,
So like I don't have access.
so can any department turn to like, hey, we'd like to, can any department
I
turn
think so,
something?
yeah.
Is that something you think would be, I mean, just to make people aware of it, if they look at that page and maybe it's
I think you're gonna get more bang for your buck there and in terms of like even, we could even do, these were the 2011 Orchid winners and put people back into that.
Oh, yeah.
Do a
Like the
drive-by
old ones and
and we have the pictures, we have all the stuff, we could periodically do that kind of thing and try to
Like our
encourage
plaques.
people. The whole plaque issue, I would love to see come downtown in summer of 2024 and check what's next to the door, and the plaques and have a list of all of the places and not just putting the QR codes out there, but say, do a physical walk around. This is part of your wellness and your health and
And then every once in a while, there could be remember if you're in the historic district.
Right, you could have,
there's
absolutely.
this little
So we
role,
could-
this little,
so I could ask if we could do like fun facts or,
Yeah,
Some sort of,
that's a good, yeah.
like they just did the Public Works Week.
yes.
And I thought that was really cool, like they kind of like, I mean, most people don't even have any clue what the Public Works Department does, and they had who the people are that work there. and what they do.
Yeah, put your face.
Yeah, so people understand it, and I mean, I don't think, we'd only need like one a month or something, just enough to.
Okay, but that would be a good,
Not going to
example of what you
education
guys
too.
are kind of
Yeah.
wanting to do, but I mean, it wouldn't be.
We don't wanna highlight us. I know, like, put everybody's picture on.
Fine, but I get I get where we're going, so, okay, I will ask, okay. Take all my notes here.
I think we're looking for low cost, low time commitment.
Yes, it's something
And the
to
biggest-
remind
yeah.
people.
And I think this would be a wonderful time just to go back and do the 3 awards that were given for orchids this time and just do one out
Yeah, that
there
would be
and just
very
do a quick thing on them.
Yeah, cause I took pictures at I have pictures as submitted, I have pictures of the homes. And then I have pictures of the people who were awarded, so, I mean, she
I
could probably
think
throw
that
it
kind of
together.
thing gets out there and then people share it and it makes it far more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, why not highlight some positive things that we're trying to do? So, okay, cool.
Do we have a follow tab follow the Historic Preservation Commission
On Facebook?
on Facebook?
I don't think so, because we don't have our own
We don't have your own, okay.
page. It's
Or
just the city.
We could
page.
do,
Probably could get your own.
find us on cityoflewiston.org.
For you to manage?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking, I guess Carol would manage it, but maybe the city manages, does the city of gosh, does the police department manage their own? Cause I know they have their own.
Yes,
Okay,
Prosecutors have their own
yeah, Nez County.
in Nez County. We don't need our own, but then we need to get a way to get them to us, right? Or get the information. to
Okay,
everybody.
I will ask Carol. Gives me ideas.
another thing you guys might be able to do is at the material building, you could put something on Facebook saying, you know, hey, we're down here, we're handing out, I don't know if you wanna say like maps of all the QR codes and like bring your kids and we'll have a little reward if they come back and they can, if they've checked every box, then they can get, you know, it's kind of like, what do they call that? Scavenger hunt?
And Katie, I would really love to have
In the
a
school.
quick list for the fair this year. We could put it at the Nez County exhibit because we've got such a great place to have it there.
And I.
Of all the QR codes,
Oh, yeah, that's-
all the stuff, where they are, you know. We can encourage them and we could spend some time showing people how to use them.
Okay.
Because they're always engaged in conversations and it's been more and more each year. I can't believe last year, the number of people that we had almost tripled in terms of where they're stopping at the booth and it's a big difference. But that would be something tangible that we could give out to people, and we could fund. The sheet, you know, it just has to be put together. It doesn't have to be a cost factor for the city even at that point. But it would also match what we've got over here with developing partnerships. That could be a partnership that we could take on as a museum and have that there, because people like to walk away with things.
And I have a bunch. I ordered another like 500 or of the map, like the original map that we had like on and off of. You guys added a couple of places to that map when we did the QR codes. But I do have lots of those maps and that all of those buildings have codes.
Do the tourist people get to see those when they come somehow?
I do provide them to visit Lewis Park Valley.
Okay, good.
Yeah, cause Public Works Day has all the schools come. And so if you had something similar to that, the schools could come and do some activities, maybe.
We don't have it's just this, like, I don't know that you could make a whole day of activities out
I
of.
wonder if you could piggyback, join
This commission.
Pumpkin Palooza or something.
But I think this would be the ideal time to make that partnership on that particular project, just on the QR codes and that would be one thing that we could do. It gives us something more to give to the public and it's our job. I think, to talk about Nez County.
Well, and
history.
it would
what-
help the museum staff the booth too. I mean, if anybody
Yeah.
was willing to
Cause
join.
it can be, you know, you need stuff to chat about it. It's not everybody's a Dennis Ortman. Not everybody talks at the same level.
Area building partnerships. Six. Okay.
Thing on the education I was thinking too is, do you remember when they used to do the fourth grade? I think they go up there and it was more about logging. They had the day up at the fairground and
They still do the run of the day.
they still have that? 'Cause I thought they had stopped that. I mean, that's a big thing, but I didn't think they were doing that anymore.
No, they still
They
do.
still do it.
Okay.
The school district, they do it every year.
At least I wrote a lot.
Because the kids don't get any history, it's Concord, they don't get any history. They get the sixth grade, they get to go on the jet boat trip, which is optional, then they get that. and That's about it. They don't
I
really
know
have.
history usually happens in fourth grade and then they have another hit. I think,
Not a lot. They
Not a
really don't.
lot, but
They don't get much history at all. Even
Okay, so moving down our list, okay, so then so 6A was develop a reference library for exterior improvements. I'm not real sure how we do that. just to be.
Would have to be electronic.
So, says the resource list might include contractors who are familiar with historic construction methods, stucco repair, window rehab, masons, blacksmith, et cetera, or preservation architects or accountants who are familiar with federal tax credit projects. Develop an outreach for local construction contractors, which identifies the type and extent of work for which a certificate of appropriateness is required.
Boise has that on their side, right? But we don't have, we're not as developed as they are in terms of.
I honestly wouldn't even begin to know who to tell somebody to, like, I know a lot of the local contractors, from being in permitting for so long, but I am unaware of any of them that specialize in historic preservation, rebuild, any of that kind of stuff.
This is the major problem we ran into that we're running into with the Liberty. And Tim Lynch backed out because he said, you know, I just don't have.
I don't know all those things.
I don't have the qualifications, and we think he did, and that he does, because there's a lot of suggest, you know, in there, but he didn't want to get involved in that. So we hired a firm out of Boise, but now that firm is going to do subcontracting here in the valley. And, you know, but one or two or three more firms to do their work, but, you know, part of the work, because they can't afford to come up here to run over to the Liberty and to double check something.
Right. That one's kind of tough. I mean, I feel like we leave it and I'm not 100% sure what we do with that.
I agree, that's actually what my notes were, I don't see how that's feasible right now.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's worth having on there to look at every so often and see if things. have
yeah,
been
because I
differently
know that
changed.
we've had contractors come to us, like the gentleman who's working on the Emerson's house. Like he seems to be more versed and skilled in doing like historic home repair and rebuilding, construction, that kind of stuff. But he's probably, I mean, he's out of Moscow, so he's probably the first one that I've had come in for a certificate of appropriateness, who was really like into original construction stuff and knowing all those bits and pieces. That's not something we seem to experience as much with local valley contractors.
Do you know if whoever did the on the Center for Arts and History, if they were local or if they had to be brought in?
I think they were brought in. I could find out who it was. Yeah, but they were not from here. But so I think like that's the problem is I think you could make a list. I don't think that anybody would be from here.
Yeah.
There's that. Okay. 7A, add a link to the building official and fire marshal for building and fire code requirements. I can do that. That takes a hot second.
Yeah.
Add information about financial incentives available. I did add the link for the tax incentive information to SHPO and their contact information, because they're the best ones to talk about that kind of stuff with. I'm not a tax professional, not my wheelhouse. List. Oh, okay, so this is one that we definitely could work on. And I know that I do have a list from when the survey was done to do the expansion of the district. So, but we could probably also work on a list. I think the discussion previously had been working on a list of houses. So list historical registry properties on the website. So there's only a handful for Lewiston that are actually on the National Historical Register of Places as individual lists. And then list historically significant property. So that was one that you guys had talked about before. Having that list of just what would be considered historically significant properties. So we had spoken about working with Mr. Brantine about properties that he's aware of and has some history to, and doing something kind of similar to what we've done with the QR codes and the plaques, but just having places listed. I mean, that could be its own subset of a
Physical
page.
address, and
Yeah, you would have a physical address and like a picture of it, and if there were historical photos available, you know, we could add those too. And that's what all those QR codes are, is it takes you to a stack of photos basically that Mr. Branking provided me. And then I loaded to the
So
website.
here's another partnership opportunity. In 6 of the small communities in this region, working with the AAA, with area agencies, have developed walking wellness tours for senior citizens. And that's working through the AAAs, and it's a pretty low cost event. But they start at a given place on a given day and say, we're going to walk to, we're gonna do an 8-block walk, and in this 8-block walk, this is what you're going to, this is what you're going to see. And it's a wellness program that is currently going on. It's, they have it like in Winchester, St. Mary's, Potlatch. There are several places, they're just doing it to encourage older people to walk when they can. To get from place to place, and that might be an interesting partnership if we were to say to the AAA, if we were to come up with 3 different spots that would be walking spots. And you could come up with the mechanism and the advertising for that to get 10 people, get 20 people who would walk. I think that would be something that that would be very doable. And that certainly, I think Todd would be willing to look at that, because he's been sending information out about those walking tours in the small cities, Kendrick and, other places that makes some sense.
Okay, but we would still need to come up with like a list of homes.
We have that kind of in that Normal Hill thing. I gave you a copy of, remember that?
Yeah, and there's
a
some
lot in
other
there.
ones.
Yeah, there's some other ones to add, but I mean, there's a lot of work already done in that.
I can
But if we're
certainly check
talking
with-
about, but not all those homes are historically listed, so.
Correct, but yeah, but it's
But
already.
the ones,
History.
the historically
It's
significant
significant,
ones
yeah.
are the ones I'm more thinking of, because
Yeah.
I can easily do, the ones that are on the register, like that's not hard. That list already exists. The historically significant ones would be the ones where this body would need to provide me some assistance, because I don't necessarily know. all
And
of those.
even our winners are good winners.
Yeah.
I could talk to Todd, but I think it would be an ideal. It's becoming extremely popular. They're talking about doing it in Moscow. Something that's hitting the ground right now as an idea. As wellness is gonna be, with this area being the oldest population of the 50,000 population group in the nation. So that's something that we've got to look at. What's the wellness issue? Some people can walk, people like me could do it with a cane, but.
10, HPC sponsors speakers on interesting subjects related to historical preservation or history of the area. So that would be something, I believe there are grant opportunities for things like that. We would have to identify a speaker, identify a topic, do all of those sorts of things. The library already hosts a number of speakers that are local who talk about a variety of different historical topics. So I would probably want to make sure that we're not just duplicating something that's already going on and making sure that
It's
we're
another partnership possibility.
coming up with topics that are not being covered or speakers that are not being utilized, that
It
kind of
needs
stuff.
to be preservation focused if we're gonna.
Yeah, not just like history stuff, but you find someone to come talk about windows or whatever. Play roofs.
Building
Even
style.
what features do we have in town that people are trying to preserve? I mean, people don't understand that there are parapets, there are,
Right,
I mean, they're
what
just,
different things
it
are.
could be a fun architectural thing someday to say, these are the historical things we're trying to preserve.
Did you know we have this?
Did you know we have this brick
Yeah.
orientation? Do you know that we have, I think that.
Example, go to such and such street.
I think it would be.
Right, or I mean, you could do it with photos and stuff
Right.
and.
It could be really fun.
So something, again, for you guys to kind of ruminate on, and do some thinking. Okay, realtors.
You know, the other one we're missing before we gotta get out of there. We're missing any focus on historic churches and how people worship in places that are really quite historic and what kind of features they have. I have a picture in my house that my wife is very tired of now, but I bought a long time ago in Walla Walla, and it was how Walla Walla worships, but it's just a beautiful picture. It's not, doesn't have names or anything like that, but it has all the steeples and all the different kind and the facades of all these churches in. And I've always wanted to get somebody commissioned here in town to do that with the churches in Lewiston and they sold it as a litho, which was really great and it's, you know, really attractive. But that's another historic thing that we could look at that would be a little different, and this is stuff we're preserving. But we're not doing the preservation. Guess who's doing the preservation? The people who belong to that church.
Dave Heckner might do that. He's retired now and he does all the NAIA posters that every year.
What is this? Who is
Dave
this?
Heckner,
Yeah, Dave.
that does the posters every year for the NAIA.
I hadn't thought about him, but
He's done some for, he's a beautiful artist.
I should bring
I know
that,
him
I should
personally.
bring that and show you someday. It's impressive. It really is impressive. And it's something that is, it's another way. We're not the only ones trying to preserve history. And I think that that might be another.
But that could be done with homes as well, though. There's such unique, you know, there's a,
The postcards
Yeah.
that Gary has over at the museum right now, I don't know if you've seen them. But the cards that he's done, colored all of the cards for all of these homes that are on Prospect and that. They're the biggest selling item we have right now. We went from stuffed animals being the biggest item in the museum store to this is now one of the largest items. Because those are beautiful. And there was a lady the other day, she said, I want 5 of those and they're not cheap. You know, she said, I want 5 of those. I want to send those to my friends. Okay, that was Lois Wolfel, I think, you know, Lois just came in, a member, you know, and just said, oh, I love these. I love sending these to my friends.
Okay, so,
And that's already done.
I said, yeah, that's. Yeah.
so under realtors, we had understanding that historic properties will change hands. The city should work to increase transparency in the property transaction process so potential purchasers understand the implications of ownership of a historic property. So we had talked about this one before, and I had reached out to other CLG communities trying to figure out if they had methods that were like working for them to make sure that people understood that properties they were purchasing within historic districts were in historic districts. Nobody had a good idea. There was 1 or 2 communities that had something put like on the titles, but they said that was still not real effective. Because most people don't read. I mean, you get like 300 pages of title work paperwork when you purchase a property, especially a commercial property. And most people don't read those. So that was something that previously I'd spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out if there was a better way to have that information.
We talked to Tammy or Wendy about that.
Yep, I've gone and done presentations in front of realtor groups and talked about where the district is. I mean, part of the problem, I guess, is, one, you have, you know, realtors kind of rotate through offices, right? There's always new ones coming in. And I think it's one of those things where people think information is interesting, you know, at that time when it's being presented to them. But when it actually comes to them getting a property, that's not necessarily what they're thinking about. So I don't know how to improve that situation. I mean, I honestly don't have the time to go to every single real estate office
No,
and be, you know, kind of sitting on them. I don't know that that's my role. At a certain point, there is just an expectation that if you're a realtor and that's your job, that maybe you're checking on zoning or other.
we don't have any realtors who are certified for historical buildings, like they have a realtor right now who is certified for aging homes for the aged.
Really?
Yes, we have a person in the valley who does nothing but
I wonder.
specialize in homes that are appropriate for an older population. And I'm just wondering if, if there were somebody, that's why I mentioned Tammy's name, because she is so involved in selling buildings downtown, as are others, but I think she's a key person.
That's a question I can ask.
We have the oddities. We have somebody who bought the historic theater because they could get it at a decent price and some dreams for it in the historical building.
Is the concern that they don't know what's in the, like when they're showing the houses, the realtors don't know what's in the historic area
It's-
to tell the person that's looking for the home, to add the home?
It's not so much the homes, because that's a lesser problem. It's buildings within the downtown corridor, the West End Historic District. People will buy them and then think that they can just do whatever to the outside, and not,
Black men.
And they're upset.
and
And they're upset when they have to come.
then they're upset when they get caught doing work without permits, and we stop them.
So it's kind of like a disclosure
It
issue.
has to be disclosed ahead of time, I would think.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is,
Wasn't helpful with that idea.
No. How do you get that disclosure to happen every single time a building changes hands?
Are the realtor, they're aware though of the districts
Yes,
to
I've
sell?
personally gone to multiple realtors.
So it's not a matter of
offices.
sending them a mailing thing that says, here's where, so
I
you're
mean, I
aware,
could-
so the
I could do that.
education's there, but.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I could do that too. I've sent things to, they have like a realtor group. And I have that gentleman's email who's in charge of like their association. I've sent them a bunch of information. I've gone and talked at their luncheons before. I've gone to individual offices and talked.
Is there no way to do it as like when you're buying it, there's something that,
So we had talked to other jurisdictions about that, about having it like on the title paperwork or
yeah.
something like that. They all said that that's not effective. Like people just don't pay attention.
Like they're not reading the paperwork.
Correct.
kind of thing.
So I wonder if maybe instead of the realtors, because also somebody may not want to buy it because of that. Not mentioning that it's in the district can be beneficial, and we don't want to think that way,
Right.
but that's real.
Yeah, well,
realistic.
and I think there is definitely a lot to that,
And
they're not,
so
they're gonna gloss over anything they
That's a,
perceive
that's
as
a
a negative.
problem. So I wonder if it would be better to approach the title people and go, hey, when you sell in this district, can you kind of wave the yellow
Right,
paper under their nose and say, just, so this is a part of the deal, this is a part of
Have
what
you
you're
thought
buying.
about hitting the title?
Yeah, cause they're usually
Because they
pretty
don't
good
have
at
to
trying
do
to.
No, 3
explain.
days before they tell them. Usually.
Well,
Yeah, it's pretty last
Yeah.
minute.
well,
but-
so, and that,
never see the county
right, well, and that was,
unless there's a problem.
that was the idea with having it on title paperwork and have it like as part of the title, have it
Right.
recorded against the title, is that hopefully it would come up in that title paperwork. I don't know about any of you guys. I purchased my houses. I definitely did not read every page of the 300 pages of title paperwork that I had to go through and sign. I signed the ones that, I read the ones I thought that were important about like the monies and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, we run into people, cause I deal with more than just historic stuff. I run into people all the time who have no idea about things that are recorded against their properties that would show up in title paperwork.
We ran into so many things that I read ours because.
Easements, encroachments, there's all sorts of things that get legally recorded against properties so that you know that it's part of the situation and that people are just not aware of. But I don't have good. And I'm gonna answer that.
They're not gonna read it, so.
So interesting. It would just, I guess, keep our eyes and ears open and keep asking the realtors, is there something you need? Do you need a brochure? Well, you probably don't need a brochure. What do you need?
Well, and I mean, I guess my only other thoughts, you could make a brochure and you could just list every property within, but I don't.
Changes and it's.
Right, I mean, and the other thing is, a lot of times, because realtors work out of their own system, right? They use their MLS, multiple listing service. And in their world, those numbers are their numbers. So they're not necessarily, because we have lots of properties that don't necessarily, because of the way that properties are broken up. There are properties that don't necessarily have an address, or they'll have multiple addresses, so then it's done by like parcel number. And a lot of times you run into realtors who aren't aware of the parcel number, they're only aware of their MLS number. So then there's, the difference there, and so if that's what they're looking at, they're not gonna see the other stuff.
Is there a way that, this might be totally not a feasible thing, but like Google, where like it would maybe, if you looked up like an address down here on Main Street where it like said within this area is a historical district, just like a.
Absolutely no idea how we do that.
I kind of wonder if maybe that needs to take a back seat. Because if we had incentives, like we talked about the city developing incentives. Then that could be in a brochure, and then also the Secretary of Interior, the tax incentives. Did you know that if you buy a commercial property in the historic district and you do this work, then there's these incentives? And so if it was more of an incentive understanding and that the realtors could go, hey, if you buy down here
Right, there's these.
versus on 21st Street, it's something to think about. And so it also lets them know, yes, you're in the historic district, but here's some of the advantages. And then we've got, different people down here that will help with this and that, I don't know.
No, that is a
So-
good idea. I mean, I think it's a more positive approach.
Yeah.
We just don't have those things developed yet.
No, and so I'm wondering if that needs to take a backseat to maybe the incentives and the positives and the brochures that are informative.
So we're just gonna leave her alone. I did, but I like that direction. Okay, and so then kind of piggybacking on that, is 1B, which is provide more educational opportunities for people such as real estate professionals, prospective buyers, et cetera. But that again goes along with what you just said, figuring out incentives, figuring out, other things like that. Plan a seminar on the certificate of appropriate process and invite those people who have gone through that process to attend and provide their feedback. Something we could do, again, that would kind of go, that goes with the education part of showing people what that process looks like.
The thing is it almost doesn't seem like it's that big of a process.
It's not, people make it a much larger deal.
It would be more of a seminar where they would need to get your tax.
Right.
That's a big deal. It takes, I think Vicky told me she spent 60 hours.
Yeah, that part's much more difficult.
Yeah, and worth paying somebody over. So that kind of thing might be better. A seminar, that's more seminar worthy. Let me put it
Yes.
that way.
Yeah, it's always surprising to me because we'll have people come in and they're gonna do work on a commercial building and they'll ask questions about the certificate of appropriateness, and I feel like there is just kind of some stigma that it's a much bigger thing. It's like, okay, if you're already turning in a full plan set for your commercial building, literally I need like one more sheet that shows like an elevation drawing with color showing me what you're gonna do, rather than just, the stick kind of drawings that we normally get with architectural plans. And then an application. That's it. It's like 2 more pieces of paper. Because we use all the same things otherwise.
Mhm.
It's just making sure that they understand that we need like full color elevation drawings rather than just black and white elevation drawings if they're gonna do colors or change in materials and that kind of stuff. So it's really not,
Do you think it would be helpful to have
Staff.
something on the city website where it talks about regular permits and all of that? If there was a statement on there saying, if you live in this, if your building is in this area, please refer to the historic preservation page for further whatever. Basically, so when they're looking at what they're used to looking at, they see, oh, I'm actually downtown and there's more to this. And then they go to the preservation page and they find out, oh, it's got some more pages. That makes sense?
yes. That could pretty easily be done.
Because if you don't know what you don't know, you don't know that you
Right.
need to be looking somewhere else.
Okay, I can look into that too. Super. Okay, and then underneath that is C, commercial building owners in the West End district. And so you guys had it. Throw on my pen. Couple of items under that. Again, these are all kind of similar to things we've already been talking about. Plan events for building and business owners, share what historic preservation commission actions are real or perceived, like we just said. And going back to that idea of having a seminar and walking people through the process. Add information to this city website, just like Leah just said, regarding commercial buildings in the West End Historic District and remodeling, construction, certificate of appropriateness rules. Incentivize reusing historic buildings by offering monetary incentives, reduce costs the city has control over. Gather information about federal tax incentives for historic properties. We do already have that link. I link it to the SHPO page because they're the most knowledgeable about that kind of stuff. And then D is residential building owners in the Norman Hill Heritage Overlay Zone. And we had talked about trying to come up with some sort of grant program to help offset costs to do preservation of those kinds of buildings. We would have to figure out where you would be asking for that money to come from. And then coming up with like criteria, thresholds, those sorts of things. Then 2 is ongoing historic priorities. So we talked about doing more kind of social media post stuff. Promoting different things like the Orchid Awards. And so this kind of goes with what we talked about in the very beginning of doing like a monthly post on the Facebook page with a fun fact or, you know, remember when or whatever. So it talks about, you know, recognize excellence, actively seek nominations for Orchid Awards or new HBC members, that kind of stuff. And then signage is also under that. And that's not individual business signage, that's more like the signage in the downtown. Some of that was a city project, some of that was a BDL project.
I think it's stagnant at this point,
Yeah, I think it's hanging out. I don't know where that's at.
which is sad because there are some things we need to identify.
Yeah, so, you know, being able to direct people to different areas of the downtown. And then we had stuff about plaques in there.
You know, that may become more important, Katie, if, for example, the Taoist temple is moved to a structure on the museum property, for example. If a building is built there because it's not terribly apparent whether or not the college is going to maintain that facility. But we own that
Yeah,
now
that's
as a
what-
historical society, and we may build a building to
How's it?
house that. So there's what signage would become
Right, more important.
more
The
important.
problem, one of the problems, like for, at least for this body, when it comes to signage, is there is not grant monies normally available for like standard signage like that, like the plaque thing we were able to do because it piggybacked on that walking tour map. But I had looked into, like, there's a sign in the corner of the city's parking lot over here that's kind of run down and
The old
look better if it was
Capitol
fixed
building
up.
sign, yeah.
Yes, and so I had looked into whether or not there was any grant funding to like replace that or repair that, and there's not.
One of
Like, that's
these,
just
one
one
of
of the,
these
like,
three,
there's not grants out there for that kind of stuff, which is
one of
funny
these
to me.
three says that we could. one of these three back here,
Which one?
and the grant says that we could do kiosks and that kind of.
Oh, yeah, but we would have to turn it to a full
The
kiosk.
the only thing that I'm seeing here, the hard one, when you do that, is especially the Historical Society grant, they say in here that we have to have the unique identification or entity number. And that is a process, because we just did that for the Liberty
Oh, is that for which one?
Historical.
Idaho.
But there are two of these say that I mean, I just did a quick reading here, but two of them specifically mention kiosks, that kind of things. As we read through those more carefully, we might find a hint there.
Yeah, so it would just have to be done as a kiosk.
I just did a cursory reading of that.
Okay, chugging along, okay, so then we talked about plaques. And so we did complete our plaque project, so Zoom is, you're connected to my
Oh, okay.
personal phone.
I was like, that's weird.
Office phone.
IT girl.
Yeah, so I have to be IT,
Yeah.
so yeah, so my office phone keeps ringing through me.
We
So
also talked about, Katie, Madam Chair, we talked about, possible plaques on some of the properties up on Normal Hill. And I don't know, we should probably keep in the back of our minds to keep looking for grant monies to do that kind of thing.
Well, I think that could piggyback on, we talked about, posting, historically significant properties. So I think if we took the time to make that list and figured that out on the website, that we could then roll into a different plaque, project, because you can get the plaques like the one I put at the, Historical Society, that have the little stand on them, so that is an option. And then you could, honor people's residences with the plaque rather than, the commercial buildings like we did the first time.
So again, in Boise, where they did some of that, they ran into some resistance from some of the homeowners because they didn't want the irritation of having to go around something when they were mowing and that kind of thing. But the ones who really cared about the historical aspect of their houses were thrilled to get some identification.
Yeah, so I mean, I think like anything, you just we'll do the outreach and you'll have a response again. But yes, I think that those two things could work together to become something that you guys, a full project. Where you would look for grant.
I wonder if there would be a way to do a virtual recognition, wouldn't have to be a plaque. If you were doing a driving tour around the up in the Normal Hill area, where you'd have maybe it's an app or something and it knows what address you're near.
Okay.
Will tell you the importance of that particular house or historical.
Okay.
I don't know, don't know what kind of technology might be available or doable.
I'm sure that there are things like that. I don't,
How
How much it would be,
does that get?
right, I don't know how much that costs or how you develop
But
that.
plaques are expensive too.
Man, I can barely run a Zoom meeting, so.
Well, I'm not.
I'm not-
Just a thought, no.
To ask those technical questions.
Speaking of which, we need to move this meeting on. Some of us have meetings right after this.
Okay, let's keep chugging then. Okay. So that's plaques. So again, we roll right into identification of historic places and buildings. That would be making nominations to the National Register. That would be something we would probably do in conjunction with a building owner. I don't know that we have any right now that we're super excited about. But that's always something just to keep in the back of your mind. Okay. And then restoration possibilities, and this was capital projects for city-owned properties, such as the Carnegie Library, and the towers. Going up Vineyard. And I believe that the Modi Park Conservatory was working on something with one of the towers, maybe. I thought Gary-
They repointed it.
I thought Gary was working on something for like the other one. I don't know, that was a while ago that he was rattling on about that to me. He tells me lots of things when he comes and visits me, so it's hard for me to keep him all straight. He's got a lot of projects going on. Okay,
Gary's not involved with Moodi Park right now.
oh, okay. Well, there's that.
Don Brigham and others.
Okay, so then we have education for commission and staff. This would be trying to find, people to come train us on different subject matter. SHPO always says that they can come do that, but I have not actually seen them like offer that out or have really good information that I thought was worth paying for one of their people to come up and talk to you guys.
So we need to pay for that.
I believe that we have to pay for that, or I think they also have like grants that you can apply for that would.
They don't have it funded in.
Yeah.
Show.
Yes, because they always like to come at me for why we don't apply for their grants, because most of their grants could pay for education.
When SHPO came to the Liberty just last year, that was funded by Idaho Historical Society. They paid for the engineers to come up to do that.
Well, I mean, one thing would be is if we do get going on the incentives thing is to have them do a little class seminar teaching on what, because I think they're the ones that are supposed to manage it for the Secretary of Interior.
Yes.
They're the in between go to.
Yes.
So if they could come up and teach us what we don't know about all that. If we were ready to roll on
Yeah, if we-
incentives, so we are well informed and can talk knowledgeably about it. So that would be one option, because you wanna, if we're gonna have to pay them and make a deal out of it, then we need to make it worth.
Right, make it worth the time and the
having
money.
them come up,
100%. Very much appreciated. Okay, so that's that. I do send you guys, so we are part of the National Preservation Alliance. I send you guys those emails when I get them and their newsletters and stuff. And they have a lot of great free seminars that they do each month. So I would encourage you, if you're able to, those are all free to you guys. They usually have a code at the bottom. But view those if you think that the information they're gonna present that month is useful to you. I watch a number of them because I think that they're usually pretty good. They have good speakers and stuff, so that would be one way for you guys to check things out. Okay. So then building partnerships, so we've kind of talked about this on and off throughout our discussion. And we have a list of organizations to possibly partner with to advance historic preservation. So like Dennis said, we could definitely look at working with the Historical Society, creating something that they could hand out at the booth. If you guys wanted to volunteer to work at their fair booth, you could do that. Different things like that. I do push out information from this group, like when we do Orchid Awards and when we do different things, I push it out to most of these organizations to share with their different mailing lists that they may have. Just-
I would encourage you to add the AAA on there. The
You have
Area
contact
Agency
information.
on Aging. And the other one, we sat in the stands at NAIA. And we were listening, we sat in the middle of people from Tennessee Wesleyan and also the Oklahoma group. And we were listening to what they were talking about, and they were talking about what they did, the places they've gone to and that they have seen. And the Tennessee people who've been here before were talking about, oh, yeah, we didn't see this last time, but there's nothing in their program. There's nothing in the program they get. There's no advertising from any of us or any local entity that says, these are things for you to do.
Right, in between games.
And these are the historical preservation projects that have gone on. Check out the historical buildings here. Historical places and you can go have dinner in a historical place that used to be a pickle. And we don't even have Finch taking advantage of that. Saying that my Mystic Cafe is more than my menu. It's also a historic venue. So that's one of those things that we could certainly start thinking about. What are some things that people would want to see when they come? And then maybe we could convince some people like the museum and other places to put an ad in some of those programs
Or
and
at the
that sort of
hotels
thing.
when the ships come in.
The hotel people have been really great about helping with more so than they ever used to be. I think since there's a lot of competition happening with the hotels, they're handing things to people who come in and far better than they used to. Which is
Right.
good.
Okay, so then so there's building partnerships, so then final one is sidewalk vaults. I feel like that's gonna get more important here in the next year. With the Main Street rebuild project that's coming up. When they get closer to being like ready to go out. Bond and all that kind of stuff, I will have either the city engineer or the public works director come and talk to this group again like they did previously, so that we can share information and figure out how this group might help with historic building owners and the sidewalk vault, the information that you guys have collected. And just trying to, be helpful so that we can help maintain those as best we can during that project. So,
I'm sure that goes back to your comments in terms of incentives. There may have to be some incentives built into that whole project for people to help people fund the retention of those. Because one way or the other, it's gonna cost the city some money, and it may be better to do some incentives and to do some partnerships there with the.
Well, maybe now that we've gone through this again and refreshed our memories and made notes, maybe our next meeting, if everybody maybe could write down 1, 2, 3 items that they think would be beneficial to be our next focus. And that could be, under business or something that we can kind of revisit and see if we could kind of come up with an idea of what we want to do next. I think this was a really good overview and reminder of kind of what we've done and where we want to go. So I don't want to work so hard on something and then totally forget about it and then go, why aren't we doing anything? So I'd like to continue talking about it and maybe coming up with another project. So are there any other comments regarding this before we move on? Okay, how about commissioner comments about other topics?
Just to encourage you to stick your necks in the aviary at the museum. Construction is going on, reconstruction of the aviary. The original windows have been put back in. There's still a lot of cosmetic work to be done, but inside there's been wainscoting and things done to putting in new ceilings and new things, and it's encourage you to hop over. There's construction going on almost daily. We project that project will be finished here in probably another 2 to 3 weeks. But a great improvement to that area.
Anybody else?
And that is done. I should mention that that's part of a grant from the Idaho Heritage Trust. Matching grant.
Okay, how about council liaison comments?
I have nothing, but would you guys like me to bring anything up at this Monday's meeting?
Well, but thank you for coming to the Orchid Awards.
Yeah, of course. Good, it's interesting. My kiddos were running around like crazy, but That's right.
That's good.
We didn't do a follow-up on that, but I think it went well.
they went really well. I had gotten kind of email thank yous from both the Kramers and Mr. Houlihan. Asking me to share the photos that I had taken and the information that had been applied for their nominations, and they both thought it was really well done and were appreciative of the recognition. So it went really well.
Have a good turnout.
Yeah, it was pretty good for only having 3. Yeah.
I can bring up the QR codes again, just as a quick mention. We use them.
So first Thursday in July is July 4th. So city offices are closed. Currently, we don't have any applications in for certificate of appropriateness. So we can either pick a different day to have your July meeting. Or we could choose to cancel the July meeting, and then if I get an application in that needs to be reviewed, then I can just send out. Yeah, we'll schedule a special meeting just for an application that might come in.
I think we ought to do that. If there's a need, we'll be there. Otherwise,
Otherwise, it kind of gives you guys some time off. And then we can go into August and fall, starting to really think about next project we want to do. Yeah.
okay, that sounds good to me. Okay, anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Thanks.
Any opposed?
All right,
Good day, everybody.
all right, till next month. Well, that's not. Can't keep track, it's so fast.